All right. Hello. My name is Jake, and I am here with Simone. Today, we are going to be debating werewolves. Are werewolves better than vampires? So, I will start. So, and for my personal, let me start my timer. Okay. So, to me, werewolves are definitely better than vampires for a multitude of reasons. Some of the reasons I got off the internet were. Um, Denentart.com stated that werewolves are better fighters, and then since they are like werewolves, they do have the kind of traits that would come from the dog family. So that would include loyalty, and courage and strength. Also, werewolves do travel in packs, so they are a part of so they do have like a family dynamic where they all protect each other. Also, there are more good werewolves than there are bad, and some advantages to a werewolf is that werewolves can go out in daylight. They also can eat whatever they want, and then they do have the ability to shapeshift into a werewolf form and then back to human form. And also, werewolves, they're basically the size, or when they turn into werewolf form, they are the size of a regular wolf, maybe just a little bit slightly bigger. And werewolves turn during the full moon. During the full moon, then they do have the ability to, turn into a werewolf, or they have the ability to turn back into a werewolf. And let's see. Sorry. Also, werewolves are warm-blooded. So if they were needing, if they did need to hide into, kind of had to blend in with society, it would make it easier for them to blend in because they are warm-blooded, and they, that would just be an easier way for them. And yeah, so thank you.
So now I want to ask you, so when you say werewolves are warm-blooded and they fit better into society, can you explain how that's true?
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Okay, so with vampires are cold-blooded, so when you first look at a vampire, then they have a pale complexion, and then there's cold to the touch, and then for warm-bodied individuals, then they are not as pale, and they're also warmer to the touch. So I just feel like in society, since all humans are warm-blooded, that could be an advantage. And yeah.
I see. And so you believe that since they blend in better with society, do you think that perhaps that might lead to them, I don't know, becoming more do you think that since they blend in better with society, do you think that might lead to them becoming more human-like? Like they'll lose their
lose the way of the werewolf.
Yeah.
I personally feel that when you are a part of such a, I would say, tiny and magical community that there is a it's kind of hard to kind of lose your sense of self. So yeah, I don't think it would be really a problem. Okay, so that was the time. So do you want to do your speech?
Yes. So I um I have points as to why I believe that werewolves are not necessarily better than vampires. The first reason would be because um if a werewolf is wounded while in werewolf form, the wounds will still show in his human form and may lead to detection, according to Encyclopedia Britannica. So that could be a problem because if he is a fight werewolf and he gets cut on his cheek or he gets cut on his arm, then when he's a human, he might be questioned about it. Another reason why I believe that werewolves, it would not be better to be a werewolf than a vampire is because if two male werewolves end up crossing paths and they get into a vicious and bloody duel, the loser will have to move to a new location. So this means that and this is according again to Encyclopedia Britannica. Um, so again, this would mean that if a werewolf got into a fight and he lost the fight, he couldn't he wouldn't just be able to hide out in like his cave and stay there and take the loss. He would be forced to move to a new location, which might be difficult because perhaps there isn't anywhere else nearby where he could live. Um, a third reason being a werewolf has its disadvantages is because despite their um, vulnerability to injury and microbes, werewolves actually do survive much longer than vampires actually. And so the problem with this would be, and this is according to fvza.org slash w sociology. So the issue with this is that since werewolves are longer than vampires and zombies, um, the problem is that okay, so they're surviving much longer, but that means they'll constantly be having to look for new places to live. So they'll be surviving longer, and in all of those years, centuries, um, they'll have to continue looking for new places to live. They'll always have to be on guard for much longer. They'll always have to be worried about being seen and caught, and living a longer time will be more just always have to they'll have to think about their safety and think about um, where they're going to live for much longer. So yeah, a fourth reason that I believe being a werewolf would have its disadvantages is because according to fvza.org slash w sociology, the same website, um, is because werewolves, if they're placed in captivity, um, sometimes die within 3 weeks of their behavioral changes lead to a state of physical decline because they are too they don't want to eat and they don't want to sleep because they've been captured and they just don't want to do anything, and that leads to a quicker death according again to that website. So also another reason why it would be more difficult why it would be more difficult um, is because I feel that when you're a werewolf, unlike a vampire, vampires are romanticized a lot in the media and movies and seen as charming and handsome and sexy. And like if a werewolf happened to be like if someone found out that a human was a werewolf, I feel like they wouldn't be as accepted as perhaps a if someone were to find out someone was a vampire. Like there might be like more stigma towards being a werewolf than a vampire. So that would be another drawback to me. Um, uh,
So,
uh, yes.
yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
So yeah.
Okay. Oh, actually, sorry. Let me set what is it? 2 minutes. Okay. So with all that, I will just want to ask, one of the traits of a vampire would be invulnerability. So basically, they would be living for however, forever until, they come to the demise. What are your feelings on, say, for instance, if you were to be bit by a vampire, would you want to basically, would you want to live forever? Is that something that you would personally, care about, or?
I if I was bitten by a vampire, I don't think that I would want to live forever because I would have to constantly be like I would have to be worrying about my own safety for a long time, and I'd be like I feel like just living for that long you might just get bored, seeing the same thing for however many centuries. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Definitely.
so
And I don't know what you personally like your favorite food, but with your favorite food, like, would you be willing to give it up? Because vampires are only, they only drink blood.
oh yeah. Um so my favorite food, I like seafood a lot. Um I don't that would kind of be difficult for me to give up. So
Yeah,
yeah, that would not be
yeah.
easy.
And then I'll set for 3. All right, thank you for your answers. I like those. So for the rebuttal, when it does, for vampires, it is, I feel, definitely just a more difficult life to live, because then you have to give up, you have to give up living, well, living amongst other people, and because you do have that like need for blood. And if you're out in public, say for instance at Disneyland, then maybe the urge for blood might, be a little bit too much, and something crazy might happen, or something of that sort. And also, well, vampires can't go out in the sunlight as well. So unfortunately, that seems like a a little bit of a con. Whereas in werewolves, they're allowed to go out, and they can really eat whatever they want. They can kind of go wherever they want, and they might get, as you previously said about them, if two alphas come into a argument, or battle, and the other one loses, then they would have to relocate. They would, yes, but that gives them the opportunity to create a pact of their own, and maybe for some reason that alpha werewolf doesn't want to be following the other alpha werewolves views. They might be a little different, or not as, they might not just be on the same page. So there is a kind of an upside to venturing out and kind of making it on your own. And yeah, I also and werewolf vampires have been you know, in all the TV shows and movies, they've been seen as, you know, super, you know, good looking and, you know, have perfect everything and all that. But for some, but what I did read is that from different.com, it says that once you are bit, you are stuck as however you are, as however old you are, whether it's, you know, 9 or, you know, 20, 22. So if somebody were to be stuck as a, let's say, 16-year-old, then they would be having, then they would have to go to school for however long they are alive for. So it's kind of like, I mean, unless they do like school, but if they don't, then they're stuck.
Okay, so well, you say that vampires live long lives and they don't die, and that they're stuck at the age that they are at the time that they're bitten. I think that perhaps that could be a drawback because if they are bitten as a teenager, perhaps, you know, they don't want to have to experience being a teenager forever. Or if they're bitten as an elderly person, they don't want to have to experience living life for however many centuries as an elderly person. So while you make good points, I believe that it would not be better to be a werewolf. I don't think it would be better to be a werewolf, because the things that I mentioned, which I will summarize, be a werewolf than a vampire, because the werewolf would be, if he's wounded while he's a wolf, he would keep that wound when he's a human, and perhaps that might lead to suspicion, someone asking, "Where'd you get that wound from?" And another reason why it wouldn't be better is because werewolves are in a fight and one loses, they can't just go off to their cave or where they live. They have to look for a new place to live, which might be difficult. Another reason is because since werewolves survive much longer on average, that means that they'll have to constantly be looking for new places to live for many more years. They'll have to live for much longer. You know, they might get and continually look for food for much longer, and it might get tiresome. And then the last reason, again, is because it has been said that being a werewolf is worse, because if they're placed in captivity, it's many times they die within 3 weeks of captivity because they don't want to eat, they don't want to sleep, and that leads to rapid physical decline. which is never a good thing. So
Right.
that's why I believe it wouldn't be better.
Okay. Cool. Respect. All right. So I will start mine. Okay. So, yes, it is. There are some there are a lot of restrictions when it does coming to living your life as a werewolf. Like you said, if they were to be captive, then they most likely wouldn't survive because they don't do well in captivity. But luckily, but hopefully having that trait of being of warm-blooded, then you are most likely to you are less likely to be detected and hunted. So hopefully got that. And then also freedom definitely is a important trait to have, which I feel that vampires do not have when it comes to werewolves, because vampires do have to look out for sunlight, also garlic, and crosses. So I just feel like that werewolves do have more of a freedom when it comes to living their everyday life, because they do have the warm-blooded trait. Also, they can eat whatever they want, unlike a vampire, which only feasts off blood, which might be at times hard to get or a little controversial. That might be a little difficult to find a I don't as I guess harmless way of farming blood. And yeah, I just feel that werewolves would have a better life. And that, I think, concludes the debate. All right.